Let's talk a little bit more about thinking we want to change. Changing is a good idea, and it usually comes from the ego. You see, what's going on in the brain all the time, it's trying to keep an equilibrium. It's trying to keep everything as smooth and as untroubled as possible. We get that from our childhood, where when we were very young, we had no concept of right and wrong, and pleasing and unpleasing, so we were just spontaneous as a little child. And then we kept getting into trouble. Don't do that. Don't say that. And so a mechanism inside of the brain started to work out, so what gets me into trouble and what gives me praise? And this mechanism is really our main mechanism most of the time. So it's looking to stay as smooth as possible and keep as much approval as possible and as little disapproval as possible. So the latest thing is, oh yes, change. We have to change. So when somebody sees their behavior is no longer getting approval, they think, oh, I need to change. But you see, what they think they're going to do is change themselves. But what they're actually saying is, I want to change my behavior so that I feel better, because other people feel as though I'm changing. So what sometimes comes up is people say, behind their back usually, they don't have much depth. Now everybody has depth. We have as much depth as into the infinite. But when they say they don't have much depth, what they're saying in fact is, this person seems to keep changing and adjusting to what's outside there. And that is the ego's way, the survival's way of staying as safe as possible and in control. So instead of going to a place, it stays in this place. It's, oh yes, we'll say that, we'll do this. And it's all based on dishonesty, but often the person doesn't realize what they're doing. And as I keep saying, often our closest friends don't tell us what's really going on in their mind. In fact, hardly anybody shares their inner dialogue. And if they do, it's usually after a build-up. So they've been holding back their truth, and eventually when it comes out as an explosion, which the other person feels justified in not receiving. Communication, talking about our truth in each moment with each other, brings us closer together. That's one thing that can happen in a community, but often doesn't. So there's this flexibility inside which restricts meeting a deeper, more honest, more sincere place. So let's talk a little bit about this deeper, sincere place. If you get more present, more conscious, and watch when you talk to somebody, you'll see with different people, different what we'll call responses, but often there's no response at all. As you talk to somebody, check in with them and see, where are your words going? Sometimes it's as though the person is just waiting for you to finish so they can say their bit. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's touched something in them. They want to turn it around and send it back. Sometimes when you're trying to sincerely share with somebody, you can, if you watch, you'll feel them comparing it with what they already know. They're checking it out. And then in the checking out is, do I agree or disagree? But there's a place in there. There's a fixed place in there. In all my wanderings around the world for 70 odd years, it's very, very rare I've found a person without a fixed place inside. In fact, really, apart from one or two, I don't know, even in India, I don't know, there was a place. There's only one, and that was Diane when she was in her state. There was no fixed place. Absolute delight to be with. Nobody there. Comparing, agreeing, disagreeing, trying to understand. No place to come from. Just shifting and moving and connecting and being with. And if something was appropriate, it just took place. And if not, it just drifted on by. And then if you take a look around at your friends and your acquaintances, and even when you're on the web, when you're watching people speak, teachers and gurus, tune in. How much place do they have? Now, some people are absolute. This is the way it is. That's a place. And they don't know. Nobody knows. There isn't a place. Everything is an idea. The truth cannot be said if it's said it's not the truth. Everyone seems so certain, and I walk as though upon thin ice, not knowing, not knowing, not knowing. Oh, really? Oh, I'll look at it that way. Oh, yes, that connects. I see. Oh, no, don't get that. But no resistance to it, no place. No, I didn't get that. It might be, but I didn't get it. Didn't connect for me. So in varying degrees, people have a place. And it's based on insecurity. It's based on fear. And fear is based on survival. And survival is the avoidance of death. Once you really, really, let's say, made friends with death, fear disappears. All fear disappears. All fear disappears. You're just present as a little child. If you try to communicate with a little child, you'll find there isn't a fixed place. They don't know anything. They don't presume to know anything. And if you say, oh no, it doesn't work like that, they're more likely to say, oh really? Not, oh yes it does, or I did it like that yesterday, or that's what so-and-so does, or I read it in the book or on the web. Oh. And then they look for themselves. No fixed place. But take a moment now. Can you find your fixed place? Are you agreeing or disagreeing? Are you attempting to understand instead of just listening to the words like wind in the trees? You don't have to agree or disagree. You don't have to understand. It doesn't matter. Thou art that. It's already there. You are that. And all that other stuff is just in front. Which wouldn't matter if you were in bliss. But if you're not in bliss, you've got too much stuff in front. Let it go. Let go what you think you know. Let go what you think you don't know. Let go who you think you are. Let go who you think you're not. Let it all go. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Absolutely nothing matters. Had a long email today from some teacher who was saying all the terrible things are happening in the world and what's going to happen. Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, the human species as we know it, the way we're going, probably isn't going to exist. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a body or out of a body. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters except the matter that you give it to it. You are literally creating your life by your idea of life. And your idea of life is not your idea. It was given to you by somebody else, who was given to it by somebody else, who is not in bliss. Right now, in this moment, there is bliss, let's say, inside you, and it's outside you. Bliss. Bliss, bliss. How come you're not floating in that bliss? How come you're not dissolving into that bliss? Your ideas. Good, bad, right, wrong, possible, impossible. You, me, up, down, in, out. All those things are in the way. Blocking. And how come you're blocking? You're terrified to disappear into being a fixed entity, which you're not. That's all just an idea that you are a fixed entity. You're not fixed at all. You're part of everything, and everything is part of you. Floating and moving and changing all of the time. And you want to stay the same. You want to know. And so you put yourself out of sync with the flow of life. Life is flowing past beautifully, delightfully, shining, sparkling. And you're saying, no, I want to be in here, in this situation, with this, the things I want, the way I want to be. That's your misery. You are creating that. There's no such thing as misery. It doesn't exist. It's not floating around. You are creating it moment to moment by your resistance to what is. If you just sit, close your eyes, disconnect, and say, what's my ideal? How would I love to be? Where would I love to be? Who would I love to be with? That's your truth. That's who you are. And of course there's more of you beyond that, but that's your matrix. That's what you're living up to all the time. And it would happen if you got out of the way. If you got out of the way, you wouldn't even have to make a phone call. They'd call you. They'd knock on your door. I know people where that's happened. Somebody once came to a meeting and said, I'm letting my life go. The following morning, somebody knocked on the door and asked if they wanted to sell their house. It happens. What we call magic isn't magic at all. We're all connected. We're all interfacing with each other all the time. And you reach a sincere, honest place, and everything has to respond to you. It doesn't have a choice. It will respond to you when you reach a sincere, honest, revealing place within yourself. And acknowledge that. So any misery, any discomfort, any trouble that's going on in your life is there because you are resisting your opportunities, your messages, your potential. It's there now. Let's go back to the beginning. When you say you want to change, you take a look. Take a look. You're probably saying, yes, I want to change. Now, take a look. And what are your conditions? I want to change, but of course I don't want to, and I don't want to let go of, and it's those don'ts that are creating your life. that are creating your misery. It's the don'ts. When you reach a place of saying, thy will be done, I am totally available to whatever is appropriate. It's happened. There's no process. You're there. That's what happens in the Satori group. When somebody reaches that place and they've tried and tried and tried and can't do it and they give up. It's the giving up. There you are. And it's been there all the time. And the reason you're not experiencing that, if you're not experiencing right now, in this moment, is all the stuff you put in between. All your conditions, all your ideas, listening to the mind that's saying, we've got to be safe, we've got to be secure, we've got to predict what's going to happen. But if the mind's that clever, how come you're not in bliss? You see, the mind isn't designed for bliss. The mind is just a very basic program to keep you in your body so you can keep reproducing for as long as possible. It's very basic. An extraordinary mechanism. But you don't get bliss through the mind. You get bliss when you disconnect from the mind. Let it go on. Because every now and then you say, hey, you're going to walk in front of a bus. Oh yeah, thanks. Let it go. Let it go. Don't listen to it when it says, now if you had have walked in front of the bus and you'd have got knocked over and you haven't made a will and you... no, it's all gone. You did it. It's over. It's finished. You're here now. Life starts now.